Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic has been set for UFC 295 via Dana White in the MSG at Madison Square Garden in November. Jon Jones has said, we're going to scroll a little bit here on my story, because Jon Jones has said that this fight with Stipe Miocic, how cool would it be to spend my retirement fight dominating the greatest heavyweight of all time in my home state at Madison Square Garden. He said this on April 15th, saying officially that he is going to retire at UFC 295. If Stipe loses, there's really nothing much left for him. He's not going to fight for the vacant belt after that. And if he beats Jon Jones, would he want to risk it and fight Sergey Pavlovich for the vacant belt? Or not for the vacant belt. Would he want to defend his belt against Sergey Pavlovich and risk his legacy? I highly doubt that. So that is why I do believe that this upcoming heavyweight fight with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic is going to be a double retirement in the UFC's heavyweight division. Jon's already alluded to it. And again, if Stipe wins, you really think he's fighting Sergey Pavlovich? And if he loses, well, do you really think he's going to try to build himself back up to another title fight? I think not. I think we got a double retirement on our hands for UFC 295's main event. A banger fight, the greatest heavyweight of all time and the greatest light heavyweight. Maybe if you want to say the greatest just overall MMA fighter of all time. This is some crazy news in the heavyweight division. My early prediction is going to be Jon Jones to get the finish in round number 3. What do y'all think? Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic. Last thing is going to be the betting odds. I forgot to go over that one. Let's see right here. When Stipe Miocic fights Jon Jones at UFC 295 on November 11th, it'll mark 959 days since he last stepped in the UFC octagon. And the betting odds are out. Jon Jones is a big favorite at minus 320 as a 3-1 favorite. 75% chance saying Jon Jones is going to win, with only a 20-something percent chance for Stipe Miocic to win this fight. What do y'all think about these odds? Who wins and why? Put your predictions down below. And do you believe we get any other bangers added to the card? There was rumors about Leon Edwards, Colby Covington for this card or for UFC 294. Maybe that is the co-main event. Maybe you do a women's co-main event like Juliana, Peña, Raquel, Pennington. What do y'all think about this in the heavyweight division? I got Jones by finish. Women's featherweight division inside the UFC is literally gone. I mean, I was looking at this like yesterday or the day before, because I was looking at where Juliana Peña and Raquel Pennington were ranked, just to see if maybe Raquel was at number 3 and Holly had somehow slipped in the number 2 spot. I was just trying to figure out who was next for the vacant bantamweight belt. Obviously, it makes sense. Juliana Peña, Raquel Pennington. Then I looked to the right, and I don't see Amanda Nunes, and I don't even see like the featherweight icon where it shows women's featherweight division. That is literally gone from the UFC website. There is no more women's featherweight division. They're done. They are done. We have the pound for pound rankings. Alexa Grasso on top. Again, don't even get me started on that. Zhang Weili should be number 1. Valentina Shevchenko probably should be number 2. Alexa Grasso, number 3. Erin Blanchfield probably number 4 to be quite honest with you. I like seriously. And then so on and so forth. Tatiana Suarez should probably be up here at like number 6, number 7 as well. But that's a conversation for another day. But featherweight is completely gone. Because, I mean, the featherweight contenders are Josiane Nunes, number 14 at bantamweight, Norma Lamont, number 13 at bantamweight, Chelsea Chandler, number 15 at bantamweight, Carol Rosa, number 9 at bantamweight, and Yana Santos, number 7 at bantamweight, and then, like, Zara Farron and a few other, like, pretty dog doo-doo fighters. But, yeah, I guess that's it. It's not official. Dana hasn't announced anything. That the featherweight division is completely terminated, but is no longer on the UFC website, so we can only really infer that women's featherweight is over. It is over indeed. Arman, Tsarukyan, and Beneil Dariush in the lightweight division. The fight is not officially in the works, but I've heard things from Grant Dawson saying that the UFC wants the fight, and both fighters have agreed to fight later on this year in 2023. Obviously, it's not official. It's not a main event. It's not a co-main event. It's not even close to being done at this point, nor do we know if it's actually officially being done. But we have seen tweets in the past of Beneil saying he agreed to the fight, and Arman saying he agreed to the fight, so that's all we really need to kind of infer that that's probably what's going to be next in the UFC's lightweight division. If we go on to the UFC rankings as of right now, the lightweight top 10 does have Beneil Dariush at number 4. He's not going to go up in the rankings. Poirier and Gaethje are fighting each other. He just lost to Oliveira. Chandler's going to fight against Conor McGregor. Rafael Fiziev is rumored to fight Mateusz Gamrot. Mateusz has already fought Beneil Dariush. Rafael Dos Anjos is moving up to welterweight. Grant Dawson has already said he's getting the winner of Jalin Turner and Dan Hooker. Renato Moicano was rumored to fight Arman Tsarukyan, but he's injured. Damir Ismagulov's coming off a loss. Matt Frivola's trying to fight Paddy Pimblett. It literally only makes sense that Arman Tsarukyan and Beneil Dariush fight. Arman is coming off a few good wins in the lightweight division, beating Damir Ismagulov and Joaquim Silva, Joel Alvarez, Christo Chagos, and a top 15 guy in Matt Frivola right there as well. And at this point, he's kind of deserved it, especially because I thought he got robbed in the fight with Mateusz Gamrot. I think he should be at like number 6, number 5. But this should make sense for UFC Fight Night main events for later this year, maybe in September, maybe in October. If it is 5 rounds, I think Beneil Dariush is going to have a slight striking advantage, with the grappling being very, very even as well. Speed probably going Arman, technique probably going Arman. The veteranness of Beneil Dariush and the experience could get him in to some of the good places where he's able to outsmart the younger fighter in Arman Tsarukyan. I kind of expect this fight to be a coin flip in the UFC lightweight division, so let's flip a coin. I'm going to go Arman Tsarukyan by a really, really close decision. Leon Edwards said in an interview with CC Legaspi on Twitter that, well, a fight with him and Colby Covington would happen this year in 2023 for sure, and it was going to happen on either UFC 294 or at UFC 295. If you don't know, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic just got announced for UFC 295, so that could be one of the most stacked UFC pay-per-views ever, to have Leon Edwards and Colby Covington also on that pay-per-view as the co-main events. But if that's not the case and we get it in October, we got Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, 5 rounds in the welterweight division in Abu Dhabi in October. Islam Makhachev's also rumored to be on that card versus maybe Alexander Volkanovski, maybe a rematch with Charles do Bronx Oliveira, or maybe a curveball of the winner of Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. But either way, UFC 294 or UFC 295 is going to have 2 title fights on it. And one of them is going to have Leon Edwards, Colby Covington. The other one is just going to have 1 title fight. But either way, we have a banger pay-per-view coming on our hands for either 294 or 295. Because imagine Leon, Colby, Islam, and Oliveira, or Islam and Volkanovski on one card together, or John Jones, Stipe, and Leon and Colby on a card together. That is absolutely insane. An amazing main event and co-main events could happen for one of these pay-per-views. Either way, my prediction for this fight is going to be Leon Edwards by decision. I think his takedown defense has just been getting better and better and better every single fight. His cardio has been improving. His technique and his kicking game is obviously getting much and much better. I do believe he defends most of these takedowns and outstrikes to a close decision. Raquel Pennington expects to fight for the vacant bantamweight belt against Juliana Peña. This one isn't a delusional tape by any means because it's very, very likely to happen. And in my opinion, I'm assuming UFC 295, UFC 296, co-main event maybe for one of those cards, either at the T-Mobile Arena or at Madison Square Garden. I think I might be delusional, and those might be the exact same place. But whatever, I think this is the fight to make. I think Raquel Pennington hit it right on the button here. I'm sure Juliana Peña is probably out here like, no, I want me versus Miesha Tate for the belt. Me versus Holly Holm. No, Raquel Pennington is really the only fight that makes sense. Early prediction for this one, I do have Juliana Peña winning a 48-47 decision. Raquel is a very hard girl to finish, so I see this one going all the way. Some of the early rounds, Raquel sorta outlanding Juliana Peña on the feet, but Juliana making a swift comeback in those later rounds to win the decision. Not a horrible fight, but it's a co-main event for a pay-per-view. Not too shabby, I would say. Jalin Turner, who, I mean, a day ago, 2 days ago, I was already spewing that Jalin Turner should be a welterweight inside of the UFC and nowhere near looks like a lightweight of the UFC. I mean, if Alexander Volkanovski is competing in the UFC lightweight division very, very closely to beating a guy like Islam Makhachev, up a weight class, not even fully bulked, and you look at a guy like Jalin Turner, who's about half a foot taller than him, it's probably the same reach, to be honest, because they have just insane reaches. Jalin Turner's just absolutely freaking massive for the UFC lightweight division, and this just proves it even more. Jalin Turner misses weight ahead of his fight with Dan Hooker at UFC 290 and is going to be giving up 20% of his purse, I believe. Personally, I think it should be like 50% of his purse, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. Missed weight by 2 pounds. The fight will stay on. There are no cancellations in this fight, but Dan Hooker is going to make a lot more money, as he should. But let's be serious. Let's be serious here. Jalin Turner is not a freaking lightweight. He's not a lightweight. The dude is 6'3" tall. Not the longest reach ever. 75.5 inch reach. But he's just so tall and lengthy that he kind of makes up for it, to be honest. Beat Joshua Coulibaugh in the lightweight division. This dude's a featherweight now. He came after that to knock out submit Brock Weaver, submit Euros Medic, knock out Jamie Malarkey, submit Brad Riddell, and then lose a really, really close one to Mateusz Gamrot. Got out-wrestled by Matt Frevola. That's usually the way to win against one of these tall, really, really lengthy guys, is to out-wrestle them and grind them on the ground like Frevola and Gamrot did, or because they're so skinny and cutting so much freaking weight. You weight bully Jalin Turner. You do what Vicente Luque did in their welterweight fight, his natural weight class, and knock him out in round number 1. But after this fight, I still think Jalin Turner wins. This is just even more of an advantage for Jalin Turner to be 2 pounds heavier in this fight. That is still absolutely insane. But after this one, he'll probably be like number 10. Number 9 in the UFC lightweight division rankings, and I'm going to be serious. We need to seriously start thinking about just moving Jalin Turner up to the UFC welterweight divisions where, let's be honest. We got Jalin Turner, Neil Magny. Let's be honest. We got Jalin Turner, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Let's just be honest. We got some bangers here in the welterweight division. Some really, really fun and intriguing matchups at welterweight. Even Gilbert Burns versus Jalin Turner. I can't really think of any of these fights besides those really, really high-level wrestlers like Shavkat, Hamzat, Bilal, Colby, Usman that would not be fun fights for Jalin Turner. I'd love Jalin to move up to welterweight after this weight miss and fight Ian Machado Gary, fight Jack Della Maddalena, Michel Pereira, Magny, Stephen Thompson. We have so many fun fights for Jalin Turner up the weight class. But what do y'all think about a 2 pound weight miss by Jalin Turner. Who should he fight next? Should it be a lightweight? Should it be a welterweight? Put your thoughts down below. Dricus du Plessis rejected a title fight with Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. Dricus du Plessis is at number 5 in the middleweight division. Adesanya has beaten number 1, Alex Pereira, who's moving up to the light heavyweight division. He's beaten Robert Whittaker twice. He's beaten Jerry Cannonier once, very, very boringly. Beat Marvin Vettori twice, and beat Paulo Costa by knockout. Also beat Derek Brunson right there. Roman Dolidze is coming off a loss, and, well, before he rejected the fight, Sean Strickland was coming off a loss to Jerry Cannonier. So, Dricus du Plessis at number 5 in the middleweight division says that he rejected an Israel Adesanya fight because he wanted to test himself and not have an easy road to the title. What in the freaking world are you doing, Dricus du Plessis? My guy wanted to fight Robert Whittaker, the number 2 contender. I don't know why he's number 2. He should be number 1 over Alex Pereira, because if Robert and Alex ever were to fight, we all know Robert Whittaker is smashing my guy Alex Pereira, but I digress. Dricus du Plessis says the fight with Israel Adesanya could have happened, but he said no and accepted a Robert Whittaker fight instead. What are you freaking doing, you stupid idiot, Dricus du Plessis? You're a solid fighter. I mean, you went out there, TKO'd Derek Brunson in round number 2. You went out there and got a solid decision on Brad Tavares. I mean, you got a lot of solid wins inside of the UFC. Knocked out Trevin Giles, knocked out Marcus Perez. You got a lot of solid wins. Why would you... I mean, I'm going to be honest. Robert Whittaker is probably a harder fight for Dricus du Plessis to win than Israel Adesanya. I don't know. I can't be for sure and for certain, but at least I know that fighting one time and then getting the title fight is a heck of a lot harder than just getting the title fight. Dricus du Plessis. Dricus is right here. Whittaker's over here. Whittaker's number 2 in the middleweight division. You lose that fight, you're probably never getting that title fight. Whittaker's going to fight for the belt. Sean Strickland's going to fight. Hamzat's going to fight. You're going to have all these other influx of fighters probably fighting against Israel Adesanya for the belt. Or you could literally just... I mean, you had beef with Israel Adesanya. You're both talking about who's the real African champion. And we all know that's Mike Perry, but still. You had beef, you had backstory to go out there and make this a compelling main event of a UFC pay-per-view. But you decide to fight Israel Adesanya, to fight Robert Whittaker instead of Israel Adesanya. I don't know. This has to be one of the most zero IQ moves in UFC history. Because, I mean, just say, for example, Dricus goes out there and beats Israel Adesanya viciously, knockout in 10 seconds, and they don't give Adesanya the rematch. You'll still fight Whittaker. Whittaker's going to get the title fight after that. You'll fight Whittaker anyway. Why do you want to fight it before you get the title fight? Why would you want to do that? I don't know. I mean, just say you're Colby Covington. Right now, Colby coming off a win over Jorge Masvidal. The UFC gives him an option. You want to fight Kamaru Usman? Dricus du Plessis would be like, sure. 10 seconds after that, they say, well, you could also fight Leon Edwards for the belt at UFC 294. Nah, I'll stick with Kamaru Usman on the main card of a UFC pay-per-view. 3 rounds. We're not getting pay-per-view points for this. And it's just a number 1 contender fight. I'd rather just fight Kamaru Usman again. Rather than fight Leon Edwards, I'd rather fight Usman. Let Khamzat Chimaev get the title fight. Let Shavkat get the title fight. That's essentially what Dricus du Plessis is doing here. That's like Stipe Miocic talking about the John Jones fight and saying, nah, I'd rather fight Sergey Pavlovich before that. I'll beat Sergey and then I'll fight for the belt. That sounds fun. That sounds like a jolly good time. What are you doing, Dricus? Zero IQ move. Absolutely zero IQ move. I don't know, maybe Dricus goes out there, knocks out Whitaker, knocks out Adesanya, and becomes the greatest middleweight of all time. Maybe he's got a master plan behind him. But as of right now, this is one of the most zero IQ moves in UFC history. What in the world? Dricus du Plessis. Conor McGregor posted this onto his story earlier today. It's from the Mac Life official, and he tweets, or a quote, I guess, from Dana White, 100% there is a chance Conor fights this year. Who cares what USADA says? We'll see what happens when it happens. So I don't know. So Dana White is literally admitting here that he might not even use USADA to get Conor McGregor back inside of the UFC by the end of 2023 and on that UFC 296 card as the main event in, I know it's in December, I'm forgetting where, I thought it was in the T-Mobile Arena, right? Or was it Madison Square Garden? I thought Madison Square Garden was in November, so it had to be T-Mobile Arena. In December, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is still not off the table. A lot of people were talking about, well, McGregor needs to get back in the USADA testing pool by a certain time period or he's unable to return by the end of 2023. Dana's like, no, I don't give a blank. We'll get Conor in. We'll find a way. We'll bypass USADA if we have to. We're getting Conor McGregor in. So this is pretty much Dana admitting that Conor is on something, is on a lot more than, a little bit of something. And he's saying, who cares what USADA says? We'll see what happens when it happens. Most likely referring to UFC 296. What do y'all think? Does Dana White find a way to bypass USADA and get McGregor-Michael Chandler set for a lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, heavyweight fight at UFC 296? Put your predictions down below. Benoit Saint-Denis coming off a solid win at UFC Fight Night. Strickland Magomedov, he's 3-0 in the UFC's lightweight division. Did lose up a weight class. I mean, everyone needs to remember the Elizeu Zaleski fight was short notice, up a weight class at welterweight against a guy that has gone out there and beaten guys like Sean Strickland in round 1 by knockout. Max Griffin by unanimous decision. Beat Omari Akhmedov by knockout. And so many other guys by knockout. Only losing split decisions to Nicholas Dalby, Muslim Salikov. And a knockout to Jing Liang Li. That's the only guy that Benoit Saint-Denis has lost to. And again, it was up a freaking weight class. He's coming off the Ismael Bonfim win, and I've been getting asked, who do you give him? I mean, he called out, who did he call out? Trying to remember. He called out Arman Tsarukyan, he called out Mateusz Gamrot, Rafael Fiziev, Beneil Dariush, all of the big name grapplers and strikers in the top 10 of the UFC lightweight division. I'm going to get a little toothpick here. Here's a bubble. Pop! I'm going to burst your bubble here, Benoit Saint-Denis. You're not getting a top 15 fight. I'm sorry. You're good. You're solid. You're ranked number 26 on Tapology in the lightweight division rankings, but you're only 3-0. Usually you got to get like 4 or 5 wins in a row. Then you maybe get a shot inside of the top 15. You need a guy right outside the top 15, not a guy that's 1-0 in the UFC. Like an Ismael Bonfim, who, again, is a very, very good win, but we need a guy right outside the top 15. And I got a few names in mind. We're not going to go Jakar Close. We're not even going to go Guram Kutataladze, because I don't want to ruin Guram this fast. He's only 31 years old. I think we can still build him up and have him as a mainstay gatekeeper in the UFC lightweight division. But we do have a lot of these older aging UFC lightweights that we can really test a guy like Benoit Saint-Denis with. One of those is, 38 years old Diego Ferreira. A guy that lost to Gamrot, lost to Gregor Gillespie, and lost to Beneil Dariush, but has also beaten guys right outside of the top 15, beating the PFL champ, Oliver Aubin-Mercier, and has literally only lost to top 5, top 10 guys in the UFC lightweight division. This guy is top 15 caliber, and anyone that beats Diego Ferreira, if we just take a little bit of a look at him, Beneil Dariush, after he beat Diego Ferreira, got Tony Ferguson in the co-main event of a pay-per-view. That's a huge fight for him. Gregor Gillespie, after he beat Diego Ferreira, well, he freaking just upped and dipped. So I don't know what the frick Gregor Gillespie is doing. After Mateusz Gamrot was able to do so, he ended up getting a main event with Arman Tsarukyan. If you're able to beat a guy like Diego Ferreira, you get a huge step up in competition. So that's kind of the gatekeeper to get into the top 15 that I would give for Benoit Saint-Denis. There is also Thiago Moises, which would definitely make sense, but he's 28 years old. Benoit Saint-Denis is 27 years old. There are still ways to build up Thiago Moises in this UFC lightweight division. We just got to do it slowly. We got to give Thiago Moises the right matchups, the right contenders and up-and-comers and things like that to get him back in the top 15 because he's still very, very young. We wouldn't want to put two younger guys together like that. So Diego Ferreira, Benoit Saint-Denis, 3 rounds at UFC France on September 2nd. Makes sense to me. Let's do it. Miesha Tate. One of the most delusional takes I have ever seen. I mean, we got girls like Juliana Peña out here. I'm going to talk about that later on during this video. We got girls like Juliana Peña, the #1 contender at Bantamweight, probably going to fight for the belt next, saying that her second fight with Amanda Nunes was a close fight. She's legitimately out here saying that the second fight with Amanda Nunes was a close fight. She's saying she's confident to win the trilogy, and that I don't know, Juliana Peña is just that delusional. Some of her takes just make me so confused. But we have another confusing take from yet another UFC women's bantamweight in Miesha Tate. I had to use the picture for this post on my second account on Instagram, BurtMMA2. But Miesha Tate was thankful that Amanda Nunes had retired from MMA and says this opens her up for potentially being one, not 2, not 3, not 4 fights away from a title fight. 1 fight away from a UFC title. Miesha Tate, a girl that beat Marion Reneau in her comeback fight, lost to Raquel Pennington, lost to Amanda Nunes, lost to Ketlen Vieira, and lost to Laura Murphy, is 1-4 in her last 5 fights, and she's saying she is 1 fight away from a UFC title fight in the women's bantamweight division. I'm sorry to say, you're number 11 in the women's bantamweight division. They could legitimately give you Holly Holm at number 3. Say Holly Holm beats Mayra Bueno Silva, and they, for some reason, do a Miesha Tate Holly Holm rematch. Even if you win that fight, you're still not deserving, because guess what? Ketlen Vieira has already beaten you. Like, I don't get what the women's bantamweight divisions, top 10 and top 15 girls have about being just so freaking delusional. It's crazy. Peña saying she was winning their second fight. Peña saying that Amanda Nunes shouldn't compare herself to Anderson Silva. And now we have Miesha Tate saying she's 1 fight away from a UFC title while she's on a 2-fight losing streak. Okay. All right. What do y'all think about that? Jesus Christ. Marlon Vera and Pedro Munhoz sets for UFC 292 on the main card. Marlon Vera was originally set to go out and fight my man Henry Cejudo. I don't know why. He just lost to number 4, Corey Sandhagen. Why is he getting number 3, Henry Cejudo? Is absolutely beyond me, but now he's getting a realistic fight and going down at number 10, Pedro Munhoz, who's coming off a legit win on 14, Chris Gutierrez. Number 10 versus number 6 at UFC 282. I do have Marlon Vera winning a 29-28 decision, but it is a very fun fight indeed to be had for UFC 292. We also have Song Yadong, Rob Font on the card. We got Sean O'Malley, Aljamain Sterling on the card as well. UFC 292 is just really looking like a card filled with bantamweight prospects and champions and all of that good stuff for this UFC pay-per-view. We're going to look at it on Tapology really quick just to show you guys. We got Sterling O'Malley in the main event, Rob Font, Yadong Song as the featured fight, Marlon Vera, Pedro Munhoz as the first fight on the main card, former Bantamweight champ Cody Garbrandt, Mario Batista on the prelims, and then a lot of women's MMA fights as well. But UFC 292 is so far looking very, very good for Boston, Massachusetts. What do y'all think for the card? Who do y'all have winning, Pedro Munhoz or Marlon Vera? Tapology is going Marlon Vera, and they are agreeing with me for Vera by decision. Predictions down below. William Gomez and Lucas Almeida has been set for UFC Paris, and it is going to be on the prelims. So far, the card is looking very solid with Gan, Sergey Spivak in the main event, Manon Fiorot, Rose Namajunas as a possible number 1 contender fight. We got undefeated Azamat Murzakanov taking on Volkan Oezdemir. We got a 6-1 French debutant in Nora Cornoli on the prelims there, and Zara Farn probably next in line for the featherweight belt if they're still going to keep that around. But we got a new fight where I actually see this being a very, very fun one. 5'11" and 6 foot tall featherweights, pretty tall guys for the weight class. 73-inch and 71-inch reach. Lucas Almeida beating guys like Mike Trezano inside of the UFC, only losing to Daniel Zellhuber and Pat Sabatini literally 2.5 weeks ago, which is crazy, by arm triangle choke submission. But he's a little bit older, but he's got only 2 more, not a little bit older, 6 years older than William Gomez, with only 2 more professional MMA fights. William is quite experienced for his age on a huge win streak with a lot of guillotines in round 1, ground and pound TKOs, and coming off some really, really close wins over Jarno Aarons as well as Francis Marshall. One of them was on a Gan fight card. The other one was Pavlovich versus Blade. So he's always on at like a heavyweight prelim card for some reason. Now he's taking a big step up in competition here from the likes of Jarno Aarons and Francis Marshall to take on a veteran in Lucas Almeida, who's done and moved around and fought so many good guys in his career. I do have William Gomez winning. It is not a confident pick by any means. 90% of Tapology going Gomez is insane, but I do have William Gomez losing round number 1, coming back to win the 2 later rounds, and I got William Gomez by a decision. Caio Borralho, or Bohalio, however you want me to say the name. I'm not Brazilian. I'm from the Americas, so I obviously say the names very, very incorrectly. The man has never been finished, only lost a decision to a 4-0 undefeated guy at the time, came back with a crazy win streak, winning on the Contender Series twice, one against a title challenger in Bellator, and Aaron Jeffrey knocking out Jesse Murray in his next fight up a weight class, beating an undefeated Dagestani, Gadzio Margagia, beating Arman Petrosian, a guy ranks number 45 in the middleweight division, and just upsets my guy Christian Leroy Duncan in a very good win, beat Makhmud Muradov, and beat Mikhail Oleshaychuk, a very high level light heavyweight who's got some really, really good wins up in that weight class. Caio Borralho is 100% legit, and he is ranked number 18 on Tapology, right outside of the top 15. You got Kelvin moving down to welterweight. Johnny Eblen's a Bellator fighter, so technically, according to Tapology, Caio is a top 15 guy. But who do you give him? Who do you give him? Because right now, we got guys like Ikram Aliskerov going up to fight Paulo Costa. We had Abus Magomedov fighting against Sean Strickland. We had so many of these Russians and European fighters getting big steps up in the middleweight division, but yet we can't think of one for Caio Borralho. He says he wants to fight on the Sao Paulo card in November, headline with Jailton Almeida and Curtis Razor Blades. He wants to be on the main card, possibly a co-main event on that fight card. And I'm trying to think of a fight. Brendan Allen, no. He's coming off a really, really good win. Roman Dolidze is a possibility for sure. Jack Hermanson is most definitely a possibility. Andre Muniz is already fighting against Paul Craig. Chris Curtis, probably not. Nasruddin Imavov, probably not. Gas him down a weight class. I'm going to be honest. If we're going to give all of these Russians big steps up in competition to number 7 and all the way up to number 6 to fight Paulo Costa, let's give Caio Borralho Jack Hermanson. Let's do it. Jack Hermanson is coming off a loss. Let's look. He lost to Roman Dolidze by TKO. Lost to Sean Strickland by decision. Did beat Chris Curtis, but that's the number 15 guy. Edmund Shabazian, an unranked guy. Kelvin Gastelum now is a welterweight and lost to Marvin Vettori. I think it's time we see if Jack Hermanson truly is top 15 material and test him with an up-and-comer in Caio Borralho, both high-level wrestlers and grapplers for the Brazilian card, because I really can't think of anyone else. I mean, who else do you give him? Who else? Really, I can't think of a single other guy rather than Caio Borralho taking on my guy, Jack the Joker Hermanson. Let's do it. 3-round co-main events for UFC Brazil. Let's do it. Matthew Semelsberger and Uros Medic in the welterweight division. Both practically the same age, same height, but a big reach advantage for Matthew Semelsberger here in the welterweight division. Uros Medic's reach really just is not that big. And Semelsberger, number 32 in the welterweight division, only losing decisions inside of the UFC, which is very, very impressive, to Chaos Williams, who is a very powerful guy, Alex Morono, and Jeremiah Wells in a really, really close fight. Did beat Jake Matthews, which was very, very impressive. Beat AJ Fletcher by unanimous decision. And had 2 solid 15 and 16 second knockouts on Jason Witt as well as Martin Sano. He's got good wrestling, good grappling game, which could prove to be sort of effective here with a guy with such a finishing ability as Uros Medic on the feet. You might want to just go out there and take the man down because he's a finisher. All wins and all losses are inside of the distance. His only loss coming to Jalen Turner, who is fighting this weekend. Tapology is going Semelsberger by a decision there. But I'm going to have to go with Semelsberger's submission. I think Uros Medic is going to land some big shots on Matt Semelsberger round number 1. We're going to be like, oh my God, Uros coming up a weight class to the welterweight division is looking really quite good against Matthew Semelsberger. Then he's going to start to gas out a little bit. Semelsberger is going to hit Uros with some big shots, take him to the mat, and I got Matthew Semelsberger, the late round 2 submission or an early round 3 submission. Rafael Fiziev and Mateusz Gamrot rumored to be in the works for a main event later this year. Grant Dawson, a training partner and friend of Mateusz Gamrot, did say in I believe it was a YouTube video with, what was the guy's name? Friggin' Renato Moicano. They're doing like a sort of a podcast, YouTube video type thing together. And they're talking about that, a fight with number 6, Rafael Fiziev, and Mateusz Gamrot, number 7, was actually being talked about, potentially being made in the UFC lightweight division for later this year as a 5-round main event or possibly a 3-round main card fight for Abu Dhabi UFC 294. And this is a banger of a fight because Fiziev, we all know, has really, really good takedown defense and crazy good striking. Not as good as Justin Gaethje, as we just found out as he lost that fight. But he's got great takedown defense and is fighting one of the best wrestlers and grapplers in the lightweight division here. This should be a fun one at lightweight if it does get made. Obviously, it is not official. Obviously, it is not 100%. But if it does get made, I am going to go Rafael Fiziev by a unanimous decision. What do y'all think? Fiziev or Gamrot? Ji Yeon Kim and Mandy Bohm. In the women's flyweight division, we have a little bit of an excerpt on Ji Yeon Kim's Instagram from one day ago, and it was cracking me up. I'm gonna go over to UFC stats for Mandy Bohm just so you guys can get a little bit of a feel for the Mandy Bohm versus Ji Yeon Kim fight. It was not that exciting at all. 17 significant strikes to 10 significant strikes, literally 3-1. In round number 1, 12-9 in round number 2, and 2-0 in round number 3. Guys, it was not an exciting fight by any means. There was point deductions, there was all sorts of craziness, but it ended up with Mandy Bohm being the winner because she got kneed by and she was a grounded opponent, and Ji Yeon Kim's like barely landed that hard of a shot on her. She kind of Aljamain Sterling'd it and then got the win on the judges' scorecards. But we got a lot of stuff on here from Ji Yeon Kim's Instagram. Hey Mandy, learn how to fight first and come back talking, you little Oscar hunting blank. The difference between you and me is I never quit. In all of my 30-plus professional career bouts, unlike you, you have no legacy, you have no honor, you have made yourself a forever dirtbag for quitting. I fought you with one knee with a completely torn ACL for our first meeting till the second camp. You knew this injury and you are more than aware. You try to use this injury to your advantage, but you still couldn't, Mandy. I didn't even go home to fix my knee, nor pulled out. And you still acted like an Oscar-winning performance, you unprofessional coward. Every punch I landed in your face, you crumbled and panicked. I saw this in you and something you know to yourself. You disgraceful blank. I'd rather die inside that octagon rather than to quit like you and forever be remembered as a quitter. Please have some shame in your legacy and name. Forget about what others think. You know it to yourself. You quit that night. The knee barely touched you. It glazed off your shoulder. But you knew you had to make an act in a contest to actually win that fight. You came into the fight thinking you can out-grapple me for 3 rounds. You found out the hard way that you could not. You panicked and you looked for a way out. After losing all 3 rounds, you took your shot. You went running for an act, hoping and praying you get the win, you pathetic blank. That's the best term to call you, a little blank, B-I-T-C-H. You put not only your team in shame, I actually scrolled a little bit too much, but your entire nation of Germany. Your country doesn't need blanks like you. Say this to my face when we meet again. I guarantee you I will drill a hole in your face. Hashtag learn how to fight. Mandy, hashtag quitter, hashtag easy money, hashtag go F yourself, hashtag Germany didn't raise no blank, hashtag Oscar. Oh my freaking gosh. Ji Yeon Kim was going at Mandy Bohm on the Instagram post. It was so funny. When I first saw this one yesterday, I was laughing so hard. Like, I read that whole entire thing yesterday, and it was cracking me up because it was such a lackluster fight. Like, neither girl is really like a warrior going out there landing 1 strike in a round, 3 strikes in a round. But it just caught me by such a surprise that such low-level women's MMA MMA fighters right here. Like, and look at Mandy Bohm. She's ranked 43rd on Tapology for some reason. Ji Young Kim's at number 72 on Tapology. These aren't very, very high-level women's MMA fighters, but they're beefing so hard after their last fight. What do y'all think about that? Who wins the rematch? I got Ji Young Kim in a rematch, but I mean, she was going at Mandy Bohm in the comment section. Guys, Daniel Cormier has eaten a few too many buckets of fried chicken at KFC. They're clogging up his arteries and they're clogging up his brain pathways. As Daniel Cormier's featherweight GOAT list, I mean, is dog shit. Like, literally the most dog shit list you could possibly think of. Daniel Cormier thought of it. I don't know how. Like, Daniel, how do you do this? Daniel Cormier's featherweight GOAT list. Number 1, Max Holloway. Number 2, Jose Aldo. Number 3, Alexander freaking Volkanovski. Daniel Cormier. How do you clog your brain artery up this much? I don't know if that's a thing. But if it is a thing, Daniel has had to have done it by now. Because what in the world is this take? Love DC, but this might be the worst take from him so far. This has to be. There's literally zero argument at all for Max Holloway being number 1. He is number 3, hands down. McGregor might be like 4, might be number 5, might be number 6. We're not talking about McGregor right now. We're talking about Max Holloway being number 1. Being number 1 in the GOAT list. We're talking about greatest of all time. Yes, he went out there and beat Jose Aldo twice. Volkanovski beat you 3 times. One of them was a 50-45 absolute freaking domination. Absolute domination. And who's lost more in the featherweight division? Volkanovski is undefeated. Undefeated in the featherweight division. 3-0 against you. And you, let's go back. Let's go earlier. Earlier in his featherweight reign. Way back when. You got destroyed by Conor McGregor earlier in your career. You got destroyed by Dennis Bermudez earlier on in that career. You got submitted with an armbar by Dustin Poirier very, very early into your featherweight career. You got plenty of losses in the UFC featherweight division. Volkanovski is undefeated, and Jose Aldo had so many freaking title fight wins, whether it was the WEC and the UFC. I mean, it's obvious that Jose Aldo is the greatest featherweight of all time in terms of those accomplishments, how long his reign was, how many people he was able to beat during his featherweight reign. And Volkanovski's quite obviously number 2. He's undefeated in the featherweight division, beat Max Holloway 3 times, beat Jose Aldo, and would beat Conor McGregor should they fought as well. I mean, it's clear. Based on greatness, Jose Aldo's number 1, Volkanovski's number 2, Max Holloway is number 3. Based off of best of all time, the BOAT of the featherweight division, it changes a little bit. Number 1, Alexander Volkanovski. Number 2, Max Holloway. And number 3, Jose Aldo. That's just because of time. Fighters get better and better and better as time goes on. There's no way you're going to have Fedor Emelianenko as the best heavyweight of all time. There's no way that's going to happen. Because guys like Sergey Pavlovich would easily starch him in this day and age due to different training and all of that type of stuff. The BOAT is Alexander Volkanovski, and the GOAT is Jose Aldo. Max Holloway should literally quite be number 2 or number 3 on both lists. I don't know what. Cormier, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Jack Della Maddalena and Josiah Harrell has been canceled due to a medical issue by Josiah Harrell. A lot of people immediately after the fight got canceled were like, Josiah Harrell's scared. He doesn't want to get smoked by Jack Della Maddalena. I didn't make any assumptions. I assumed probably an injury, maybe hurt himself during camp. Whatever the case may be, it's probably something like that. He got released like literally minutes after that. One of the fastest releases of all time, because he was on the UFC website for like 12 hours and he was off the UFC website 12 hours after that, which was absolutely insane. So like the fastest release in UFC history. And then we find out. Let's go over to one of my most recent posts on my second Instagram account. Josiah Harrell pulled out of the fight this weekend was actually a life-saving event for Josiah Harrell. Per his manager, Mauricio Blanco, Josiah Harrell's UFC 290 pre-fight brain MRI may have saved his life. He was diagnosed with a Moya syndrome. I'm going to look that up really quick because I don't really know what that is. Moya syndrome. It is a rare progressive cerebrovascular disorder caused by blocked arteries at the base of the brain in an area called the basal ganglia. I'm not too sure how severe it would be. If the bleeding is severe, it could lead to a dangerous hemorrhagic stroke. So a possible stroke that he could have had mid-fight that could have ended his entire life. He was literally saved because he wouldn't have had a pre-fight MRI if he continued to fight on the regional scene. They just don't have the funding to be doing that for all of their fighters as well as they do for inside of the UFC. So if he did not take this fight on short notice, he probably would not be able to go out there and know that this rare disease, Moya syndrome, was actually happening to him. Results in blocked arteries at the base of the brain, and he's going to undergo a brain procedure soon. So this literally, quite literally, could have saved Josiah Harrell's life. I know it's a bad cancellation. Now we only have 13 fights for UFC 290. We were supposed to have Madalena versus Sean Brady. We were talking about maybe Jack versus Chris Curtis versus Kevin Holland. Instead, we got Josiah Harrell, but at least we know that this whole sequence of events could have actually saved Josiah Harrell's life, which is absolutely crazy. In the welterweight division, what do y'all think? Who would have won in the welterweight division, Josiah Harrell or Jack? I would have gone Jack by an early TKO, but that's crazy. In the welterweight division. After the cancellation of Josiah Harrell and Jack Della Maddalena, a medical emergency for Josiah Harrell, Joaquin Buckley says, "Oh, sorry, Jack. Stay ready. I'll see you in Australia." Jack Della Maddalena says after that, "No, let's do it next week at the Apex. You dumb blank." And I see where Jack's coming from. I mean, he's been training so hard for UFC 290. He just wants a fight. He just wants to fight. Give Jack Della Maddalena a fight. He doesn't want to have all this training be done for nothing and not even get a fight in this month of July, and we'll have to wait all the way till what, September? For UFC 293 to fight an unranked Joaquin Buckley. I agree with Jack Della Maddalena here. Let's do it next week. Let's do it at UFC 291 and make that card even more stacked than it already is. Joaquin Buckley, lose some weight. Cut the weight if you have to. Let's get it going for next week at the UFC Apex or UFC 291. Come on, Joaquin. Let's get the fight going. Please, Joaquin, cut the weight. Amanda Ribas, who has the crazy laugh for the women's flyweight division, and I guess you could say the women's strawweight division. I think she's ranked in both. Number 11 at both weight classes is crazy, but she is coming off a loss in the flyweight division to number 8 Maycee Barber, who, it's weird, she's number 11 in both weight classes and has lost by TKO to both number 8s in Maycee Barber and Marina Rodriguez. But after her most recent loss to Maycee Barber, she had the same injury that Colby Covington had against Kamaru Usman with an orbital bone fracture, I believe. or a broken orbital bone following that loss to Macy Barber. So she's going to undergo surgery for that one, which means we're probably not going to see her in November on the UFC Brazil card. So I don't really know when we're really going to see Amanda Ribas return. I'm assuming when she does return, it'll probably be an unranked girl trying to break their way into the top 15. But what do y'all think? What lies ahead for Amanda Ribas when she is recovered? Who does she fight next?